On Instagram and Facebook, Chris Watts looked like the kind of father people pointed to and said, "That's what a perfect family looks like." Every video Shanann posted showed a man smiling, laughing, playing with his kids, and wrapping his arms around a life that seemed picture perfect. But social media has a way of hiding the fractures beneath the filters. And behind every cheerful clip was a quiet distance growing wider by the day. Text showed the shift. His affair deepened the divide. And the moment police arrived with their body cams rolling, the truth he had been trying to hide finally met reality. Watch closely as he stands in his neighbor's living room, pretending to be calm while the surveillance footage plays on the TV. You can see it, the tightening jaw, the restless movements, the sudden panic behind his eyes. It's the exact second the polished, perfect dad image he built online begins to crumble in real time. And that's where this story starts. Not with the videos everyone saw, but with the moment his carefully crafted facade finally cracked under the weight of the truth. On social media, the Watts family looked like the modern blueprint for happiness. Shanann posted daily videos filled with laughter, warm hugs, and playful moments with the kids. Chris appeared in the background of nearly every clip, smiling shyly but lovingly, as if he were the calm center of their world. To friends, co-workers, and the thousands of people who followed Shanann online, their life seemed untouched by the stress and exhaustion that most families face. And that's the danger of the filtered life. People see only what's shown, never what's unfolding off-screen. Shanann believed in sharing hope and positivity. She believed in uplifting others. She believed that showing the good moments could make someone else's day better. But behind those curated smiles, something subtle had shifted. Chris was quieter, more distant. He posed for the videos, but his eyes didn't match the joy around him. No one watching would have guessed that, privately, the foundation of their marriage was weakening. Their home looked bright. Their vacations looked joyful. Their marriage looked strong. But illusions online can mask storms offline. And Chris became the perfect example of a digital facade. Someone who appeared steady, supportive, and loving, even as his real emotions drifted further from the life he had built. This chapter of their story asks a question many people overlook. How much of what we admire online is real, and how much is simply performance? The Watts family wasn't the first example of social media perfection, hiding a crumbling reality, but it would become one of the most haunting reminders of the gap between what is posted and what is lived. While Shanann continued posting heartwarming clips, behind the scenes her text messages told a different story. She confided in friends that something felt off. Chris was pulling away emotionally, becoming less affectionate, less engaged, and far more detached than the man she had married. She noticed him avoiding conversations, withdrawing during trips, and acting strangely protective of his phone's small behavioral shifts that signal emotional distance long before they become obvious to outsiders. Shanann tried to fix it. She sent thoughtful texts, planned family activities, and openly asked what was wrong. But Chris often responded with vague reassurances. "I'm fine. Just tired. Nothing's wrong." It wasn't anger she sensed. It was absence. Silence. A odd void where connection used to be. Meanwhile, the videos continued. Birthday messages. Family outings. Sweet moments between husband and wife. But those online snapshots froze time in a way life never does. They showed a past of closeness, even when the present was drifting apart. Social media doesn't show the unread messages, the emotional gaps in a marriage, the late-night doubts, or the attempts to hold something together that's slowly coming undone. As Shanann reached for answers, Chris was already elsewhere emotionally. His mind was divided, his heart conflicted, and the gap between appearance and reality widened with every day that went unspoken. This chapter reveals the truth many people experience silently. Relationships rarely fall apart in sudden, dramatic moments. More often, they erode quietly, gradually, through small changes that only the closest person can feel. And yet, to the world watching through a screen, everything still looked perfect. Chris's emotional withdrawal didn't come from nowhere. At the center of it was a growing relationship outside his marriage, one he kept carefully hidden from everyone around him. The affair didn't begin with dramatic intensity. It began, as many do, with small conversations that crossed invisible boundaries. A lingering message, a shared moment, a feeling of newness that contrasted starkly with the responsibilities waiting at home. He was building two lives at once, the public one, defined by family videos and smiles, and the secret one, defined by attention and escape. In the affair, he felt seen in a way he convinced himself he wasn't at home anymore. But the truth was simpler and far more human. Maintaining a double life changes people. It divides their focus, their emotions, and their integrity. And as he became more invested in the new relationship, the life he had lived for years began feeling heavier, more complicated, even though nothing fundamentally changed except his own choices. What makes this chapter chilling is not graphic actions, but the psychological shift. Chris learned how to lie convincingly. He learned how to compartmentalize. He learned how to present the perfect dad while nurturing a secret relationship that contradicted everything he posted. Affairs are often messy, emotional, and painful. But in this case, it wasn't just infidelity. It was the foundation of a crumbling identity. Chris couldn't be both the committed father showcased in Shanann's videos and the person he was becoming privately. Maintaining the illusion required more deception, more distance, more acting. It marked the moment where his life stopped being real and became a performance with an ending he could no longer control. The day Shanann and the kids were reported missing, everything changed. Police were contacted because something felt undeniably wrong. Shanann wasn't answering messages. She missed a doctor's appointment, and her close friends immediately sensed this wasn't ordinary. When officers arrived at the Watts' home, Chris appeared cooperative, opening the door, talking calmly, and walking them through the house. But everything felt slightly off. It was subtle, not dramatic. He wasn't angry or hostile. He was detached. Too calm for the situation. Too controlled for a man whose entire family was unaccounted for. While the officers checked rooms, closets, and the garage, Chris hovered nearby, trying to maintain a convincing demeanor. His words were helpful, but his body language carried tension he tried desperately to hide. What he didn't expect was how quickly the illusion would begin unraveling. Bodycams don't just record scenes, they record reactions. And from the first moments, viewers noticed the mismatch between his tone and the urgency of the situation around him. Neighbors gathered. Officers asked questions. Friends anxiously speculated. Every moment required emotional authenticity, and every moment demanded a level of truthfulness Chris was struggling to maintain. Social media had allowed him to craft a version of life that didn't match reality. Now, in real life, with police at his door and no filter to hide behind, the gap between those two versions widened faster than he could control. The missing persons report became the turning point of the story. The first day, the perfect dad persona began its collapse. And unlike the curated videos online, this moment was raw, unedited, and impossible to rehearse. Police body cams are one of the most revealing tools in modern investigations, not because of the clues they capture, but because of the human behavior they expose. As officers continued searching the Watts' home, the footage captured subtle inconsistencies. Chris repeated the same phrases, paced restlessly, and avoided eye contact at key moments. He tried to appear composed, but emotional conflict leaked through the cracks. He ran his hands over his head repeatedly, shifted weight from foot to foot, and spoke with rehearsed certainty, as if he had memorized lines for a role he never expected to perform. Meanwhile, Shanann's belongings, her purse, phone, medications were still in the house, adding more questions than answers. Officers asked about the state of the marriage, recent arguments, or unusual events. Each question forced Chris to stretch the gap between truth and the version of events he was trying to maintain. What makes this chapter compelling isn't confrontation. It is the quiet contrast between the persona he had built online and the man viewers now saw in real time. The Bodycam captured his nervous fidgeting, inconsistent explanations, and attempts to redirect attention. The more he tried to seem normal, the more abnormal his behavior appeared. And while nothing explicitly incriminating happened in those early moments, the footage became a psychological mirror. It showed a man trying to hold together a collapsing narrative, someone whose private reality was circling closer to exposure. In a way, the Bodycam became the first unfiltered camera he couldn't control. It revealed what social media never could: authenticity. And authenticity, in this case, was cracking under pressure. When officers suggested checking the neighbor's surveillance camera, everything shifted. Chris followed them to the neighbor's living room, standing stiffly as the footage began to play. This moment would become one of the most analyzed clips in true crime history, not because of what the camera captured, but because of Chris's reaction to it. As the video rolled, showing his truck backing into the driveway earlier that morning, Chris's behavior changed instantly. He folded his arms tightly, rocked back and forth, swallowed hard, and stared at the screen with forced calm. The neighbor, watching him carefully, sensed something was wrong. Officers sensed it too. The Bodycam captured everything: the tension in Chris's posture, the anxious tapping of his foot, the strained breathing. He kept over-explaining why his truck was parked where it was, giving details no one had asked for. His voice lost its earlier calmness. His hands trembled slightly. It was the moment the perfect dad mask slipped. The polished social media persona, the smiling father from Facebook videos, the quiet supportive husband, all of it collided with the pressure of the truth appearing on a neighbor's TV. After officers stepped outside, the neighbor whispered what everyone felt but hadn't said yet: he is not acting right. That wasn't an accusation, it was an observation. A human instinct responding to another human's behavior. And that moment marked the beginning of the end for Chris's facade. The real world had caught up with him. The cameras he couldn't control were now telling a story he had no power to edit. Once Chris entered the police interview room, everything changed. Here, there were no neighbors, no friends, no officers casually walking around a home. It was just him and trained investigators, professionals, who read body language, inconsistencies, and emotional leakage with near-clinical precision. The interview room is designed for truth. It's quiet, plain, and psychologically pressurizing. Every answer Chris gave was measured, documented, analyzed. He tried to repeat the same calm tone he used at home, but the settings stripped the performance away. Investigators noted that he spoke mechanically, avoided emotional depth, and often redirected questions back to neutral topics. They compared his demeanor to the behavior expected from a concerned family member, and the contrast grew sharper by the minute. What makes this chapter compelling is not confrontation, but the slow erosion of his composure. His voice wavered when questions became personal. His explanations grew less detailed when talking about his wife. His eye contact broke whenever the timeline surfaced. Trained interrogators don't push aggressively at first. They let the cracks emerge naturally. And in Chris's case, the cracks were widening. The double life he had built could no longer survive under the structure of professional questioning. Social media had allowed him to control the narrative for years. The interview room allowed none of it. No filters, no rehearsed poses, no hiding behind curated family moments. Only truth, something he had avoided for far too long. And with each passing minute, investigators moved closer to exposing the reality behind the image. Every lie eventually reaches a breaking point. For Chris, that moment arrived when investigators introduced polygraph experts and deeper questioning. This wasn't a test of accuracy, it was a test of authenticity. And authenticity was the one thing he could no longer maintain. The more questions they asked, the more his answers contradicted earlier statements. His confidence evaporated. His pauses grew longer. His explanations became blurred and uncertain. The investigators kept their tone calm, their words steady, but their strategy precise. Allow him to feel the weight of maintaining lies. When the polygraph results confirmed inconsistencies, the shift in the room was immediate. Chris's posture slumped. His composure cracked. The calm, perfect dad persona was gone. What remained was someone cornered by truth. The collapse wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, emotional, and inevitable. Investigators appealed to his humanity, urging him to be honest, to stop hiding behind the image he had curated for so long. At that moment, the social media illusion completely dissolved. The man who had smiled in videos, who had posed for family photos, who had built an identity around being stable and loving, could no longer continue the performance. His real emotions surfaced: fear, conflict, shame. And in that emotional unraveling, the truth finally emerged. The facade that had taken years to build disappeared in a matter of minutes, proving one of the core lessons of this story. A crafted image can survive online, but it cannot survive reality. When the truth reached the public, shock turned to heartbreak. People who had followed Shanann's videos felt a deep sense of betrayal, not because they knew the family personally, but because they believed in the version of life they saw online. Her videos were filled with love, encouragement, positivity, and authenticity. She shared her struggles, her victories, her hopes for the future. She represented the best of what social media could be. So when the truth about Chris emerged, it felt like a personal violation. How could someone who appeared so gentle, so calm, so devoted, be someone entirely different behind the scenes? This question echoed across communities, news outlets, and social media platforms around the world. It wasn't just the crime that shocked people. It was the contrast between image and reality. People began revisiting old videos, searching for signs they had missed. They analyzed his facial expressions, his tone, his posture. They wondered how a smile could hide so much. The case became a global conversation about deception, trust, and the limits of what we can know from curated online lives. Shanann's friends defended her authenticity. Experts explained how social media often masks emotional distance. And viewers began questioning the perfection they saw in other families, influencers, and online creators. In the end, the public reaction wasn't just about the tragedy. It was about the uncomfortable truth that anyone can create a convincing image online, even one that hides an unstable reality beneath it. The story of Chris and Shanann Watts is not just a true crime case. It's a modern cautionary tale about the illusions we create and the illusions we believe. Social media makes it easy to craft a life that looks flawless. Perfect photos, smiling videos, loving captions. But behind every post is a reality that no camera can fully capture. Shanann's content was real. Her love, her optimism, her commitment to her family. She shared the best parts of her life, hoping to uplift others. Chris, however, learned how to hide behind that same lens. He used the image of perfect dad as a shield, a role, a mask that kept his private struggles invisible. And when the truth emerged, it shocked the world because the performance had been so convincing. This story teaches us that social media is not a diary. It is a stage. People present what they want others to see, not necessarily what they live. It reminds us that perfection online does not equal stability offline, and that the life someone displays publicly can be drastically different from the life they experience privately. But most importantly, it highlights the necessity of paying attention to emotional distance, unspoken struggles, and quiet changes in behavior signs that no filter or video can hide forever. The legacy of this case is not the crime itself, but the awareness it brings. The awareness that we must look beyond screens, beyond curated moments, and beyond the illusion of perfection to truly understand someone's reality. It is a reminder that authenticity matters, honesty matters, and no online facade can survive the truth forever. In the end, this story isn't just about a family or an investigation. It is about the gap between what we show and what we feel, between the life we post and the life we live. Shanann shared her world with honesty and hope. She believed in connection, in positivity, in lifting others up. Her videos were real because her heart was real. But the tragedy of this case reminds us that not everyone who appears beside us in those moments is living with that same honesty. Some people build masks so convincing that even those closest to them can't see the distance forming behind the smile. What happened here forces us to question how much we trust the images we consume every day. How often do we assume perfect means healthy? How often do we confuse performance with truth? Social media didn't cause what happened, but it did hide it. It made a fractured reality look whole until the moment it finally broke apart. So as we close this chapter, remember this. The most dangerous illusions are the ones that look the most believable. And the most important thing we can do, for ourselves and for the people we care about, is to look beyond the filters, the smiles, and the curated perfection, and pay attention to what's real, spoken, or unspoken. Because no matter how flawless something looks online, the truth always lives off camera. And eventually, the truth will surface.